Deciding to bring on a new person in your life to help with something as important as your financial journey is a critical decision that you have to make. There are many, many questions that should be asked. And a lot of times people come to our office and they say, Joe, I want to go home and think about it. Or, Joe, I don't even know the questions I should ask. We took care of that for you. Not everybody is right for the Financial Enhancement Group for one reason or another. We're going to talk about that on today's show, but we offer you a checklist of questions that I would ask if I was interviewing somebody else to manage my money. Checklist is available. It's for free. You can go to yourlifeafterwork.com, simply request it. We're more than happy to share it. We're going to break down what some of those things are for you today on Consider This Program. Good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Aaron Rheaume.
And Aaron, we're happy to have you. He is our Director of Financial Planning at the Financial Enhancement Group, also one of my partners, and it is a joy to be able to work with Aaron. He oversees the planning department, which is made up of 3 or 4 associate advisors now, 3 or 4 full-time senior advisors that we have and that are inside of the group of people. And it is a tremendous responsibility, but I hope a great joy.
It is, and growing.
It is, yes, and it's growing. And we tend to grow in crisis. We ended up hiring 4 or 5 people last year.
We did.
We did the same thing in 2008. Sometimes the best time to find people for your journey, in our case for a company, is when other people are having to downsize because they did things wrong. And, the topic of this show really is, if you're going to hire a financial advisor, what questions would you ask? And one of those that I would ask is, what is the process? That is very, very, very important in terms of understanding how things function, what you expect us to do at the Financial Enhancement Group, or what you expect that advisor to do in another place, and what's expected of you as the person on the other side of the table. What benefits are you going to get? You want to know the longevity of the people who work there.
Sure.
You want to know the financial soundness. I would certainly ask about the succession side, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna lead into this, and then Aaron, I'm gonna let you run with it. So in my 32 years, and I read a lot. I'm blessed to have the time and the focus to do that. So a lot of what I read is psychology driven, if you will, in terms of what makes people, including myself, tick, right? Uh-huh. And when I talk about the word trust, and I say, do you trust me? What happens, and most people are unaware of this, but what happens, Aaron, is there's 2 types of trust. There is character trust, and there is competency trust. Mm-hmm. Competency trust is what you have for a lot of the surgeons, right? You're asleep. You're not awake. You really don't care if they can tell jokes. You care that they're in the room, that they know what they're doing, and that you're going to live.
Yes.
Right? Competency is critical.
100%.
Right? Because it's an in and out, and you either lived, died, or had a problem. Right? It's pretty much that simple. Yep. Right? You're going to find out. In the world of financial planning, the problem is you don't know until the end whether it was really being executed correctly. And so the judgment, especially in the beginning, goes to character trust much more than it does the competency trust. When people come in, they go, Joe, I've heard you on the radio for years. This is my 22nd year of being on the radio. I've heard you on the radio for years. I understand your processes. I watched your company grow out. I trust you, right? But it's hard for people to believe that have not been here, the competency side, what it is we really do behind the magic curtain, in order to make this work. Mm-hmm. And what I've experienced is the Financial Enhancement Group is no different than the guy down the street in terms of people are there more out of character trust than competency trust, right? And so you wind up having people that are very trustworthy, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't necessarily have the army of resources that we've assembled at the Financial Enhancement Group to be legal fiduciaries, to manage money internally, to be tax efficient. But they're good people,
sure.
Right? And that really creates some problems. So that's why I created the checklist of here's things that I would ask. So let's start with this, Aaron. If you were going to hire an advisor, what is the first question that you would ask?
My question that I would ask, and I'm starting to hear this more often, is what is the difference between suitability and fiduciary? You've mentioned fiduciary twice now during our conversation, maybe more. So what's the difference there?
So a fiduciary, by law, it is our job at the Financial Enhancement Group as licensed legal fiduciaries and obligated legally. We have to treat your money as if it were our money and we were in a similar situation.
Okay.
So if your twin brother, he doesn't have one, also worked at the Financial Enhancement Group and had an identical income and had 3 little girls and a happy wife named Jess, right? If he was identical to you, there is a good chance that you guys would have exactly the same investment profile, the same thing working. You would have the same thing. Whereas in suitability, which makes up 90% of the industry, by the way, the probability is you have a fiduciary, but it's usually the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror. Most people work with brokers, people that have securities licenses that sell things, not that are registered investment advisors. Right? And you should ask that question. It's one of those things that should come up very, very quickly. Are you a legal fiduciary, and are you willing to put that into writing?
Yeah.
And if they're not, they're not. All right. It's that, the answer that I'm going to do the best for you that I can do does not cut it. But suitability means I have a box of things that I'm allowed to do that are given to me by somebody else. It filters down from what's called FINRA, a self-regulatory organization under the SEC. And then there's a broker-dealer, and they say, here's the things that you can sell, right? And you have to follow it. So I look at Aaron, and I look at his twin brother, and I come up with these pretty glossies, and I show you 3 different recommendations, and I tell a nice story. But at the end of the day, Aaron is the fiduciary. Aaron has to pick the one that he wants. Aaron may pick a different picture than his brother picks. So you could have 2 identical people with 2 entirely different plans, right? Because it's a sales process as opposed to being a planning process. And again, when you get into character trust, it doesn't mean these people are bad people. I just think they are in a different world than where we need to be. 3 years ago, before President Trump, so it was longer than 3 years ago now, time's flying, the Department of Labor tried to come up with a rule that said if you had an IRA or a 401k, only an RIA could deal with those accounts. And it really ought to be that way. You're taking risks that you don't understand. So the first question is, are you a fiduciary or not?
Yes.
Second question.
Second question is, who's on the bench? Is it just you in a one-on-one match, or do we have a team of people that's going to help us?
And why does that matter?
Why does it matter?
Yeah. I've never asked him this. So Aaron is officially on the spot.
Yeah, it matters greatly because planning is so diverse. We focus on 5 critical elements at the Financial Enhancement Group, from your life after work, tax planning, legacy planning, investment playbook. I want to know, are you making all the investment and tax decisions on your own, or do you have a team of people that's going to help with that?
So here's how I would answer that.
Okay.
We are not a franchise model.
Sure.
Right? So you can drive through my town, you can drive through any town, and you can find a bunch of names that look the same, right? Some have bulls, some have green signs with white letters. They all look the same. But what Aaron's trying to tell you is when you go into the office, what one may offer another at another firm, or another gentleman, right, or another lady 2 cubicles over may offer an entirely different strategy. And so we have a false sense of security that, hey, this is a big organization, and if something happens to him, I've got this person. Yes. About a third of the people that we get that come in that came from a quote-unquote wirehouse or another financial advisor came because somebody left the firm.
Yes.
Right? They're called orphaned accounts. And you got assigned to a new person that you really didn't like. If you call the office and you ask me to explain to you a retirement budget, and then you call and ask Aaron, you are going to hear the same words, the same concept, because we don't believe in the franchise model. What we believe is an absolute collaboration where we have our best minds thinking together. So we have planning days that we pay for as a firm, where I bring everybody into a room, I teach, Aaron teaches, and then the other people on the planning team teach their specialties. We have proficiency exams that we give. But it is critical to us that we all understand and talk about this the same way, so that if I'm out of town, Aaron can see you and you've lost nothing. right? If I get hit by a bus, Aaron can see you and you've lost nothing. The reason every meeting I'm in, Darren Hardesty, my associate advisor, is in there with me, and a paraplanner is in there with me, taking the notes to make sure that we're able to get stuff done, is so you don't have to repeat your story every bloody time you come to the office.
Yes.
Drives me insane when you go to the doctor's office. You just want to look at people and go, can you take a note? Right? Why do I have to tell 7 people the same story every single time? Right? Makes no sense, and it will never happen at the Financial Enhancement Group. All right, we only have time for one more. What else?
I'm going to go back to the first question you ask is, what is your process? You want to have a process. So you've got a team, you're competent. Next step is, what does the process look like?
The documented process. So we have our Next Steps program is what we're going to run you through. The Next Steps meeting is what happens in that first meeting. It's complimentary. We give you things to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what we'll do for you, and we put it into writing. That's key. Here's the documented process for your vision, your 5 critical elements, how we're going to go over them. You know what we're responsible for, what you're responsible for, to make sure all of that part is taken care of, and we continue to work on them. And it's the same story, right? Those are the 5 that we've identified that are the most impactful to and most probable to derail your financial picture. James Clear is one of my favorite authors, author of Atomic Habits. And James said, it doesn't take one thing will not make you successful, but one thing will indeed allow you to fail.
Sure.
Now, the quotation's a little bit different than that, but that's why we have 5 critical elements. You miss one of those puppies, you can understand investing all day long, but if you don't understand tax planning, everything can derail. Right? You can understand investing and tax planning, but if you don't understand how fees are hidden, we had an engineer come in that had put $1 million in 2 different annuities, one for his wife for retirement, thought they were set. My CFA, Adam Harder, our chief investment officer, read the prospectus over 80 pages, threw it down on my desk and said, if a CFA can't tell you what this is, nobody should be allowed to buy it. There were their IRAs, right? Had no idea they were paying 4.5% internally each year inside of annuity contracts. Had no idea they weren't dealing with a fiduciary. A broker made $150,000 in a day, but I'm sure he was nice.
Yes.
I'm sure he was a wonderful soul, right? Folks, that is not what you need for retirement. You need fiduciary guidance. Now, here's the deal. I always say this. If you want to do this on your own, God bless. It's your business. But if you're looking for a fiduciary, that is our business. Whether it be the Financial Enhancement Group or somebody else, please make sure you find a registered investment advisor. Look for a fiduciary. You have worked too hard to build your retirement, not to get it right. You can give us a call at 800-928-4001. Go online at yourlifeafterwork.com. Ask for the Market Carver video. We'll send it to you for free every single week, as well as the checklist on questions to ask when hiring an advisor.